Okay, guys, welcome to the live stream. That was a bit challenging. For guys that don't know, I stream on StreamYard and the servers were acting strange. They were just like, our servers are overwhelmed. Please try again in 60 seconds. And I've been doing that for the past 20 minutes. So I was like, I'll just postpone it. But I tried it again because someone in the chat said wait 10 more minutes and it finally worked. So there you go, result. But anyway, as you guys can see from the title, today we are talking about the 2026 Met Gala. Now, it is important to note that today I'll be talking about a few looks, but not too many looks. I just kind of wanted to set the scene perfectly for when we do the further, like part two, three, and four. So for part one, I just really wanted to set the scene and really talk about what this Met Gala has represented and what this Met Gala is all about. And I think to start off, I think the 2026 Met Gala is quite different to most Met Galas I've ever seen. I definitely think that part of it has definitely been tainted with the involvement of the Bezos family and them sponsoring it and turning it into a circus. That's definitely a negative, and there were quite a lot of protests online regarding the Bezos involvement. There's a protest group called Everyone Hates Elon that were holding a lot of protest against the Met Gala. So let's watch some of them here. Here you can see the Bezos Met Gala invites you party like it's 1939. Democracy is so last season. They put the Met Gala VIP toilet because obviously, apparently, Amazon workers pee in bottles, and because they can't actually go to the toilet. Well, to be honest, I've worked in an Amazon warehouse before when I was younger, and in the Amazon warehouse, it is very depressing. First of all, you're not allowed to take any music or anything, so you just have to listen to this playlist that you hear every single day. It's literally depressing. It's so dystopian. And yes, you are allowed to go and pee, but to be honest, you wouldn't, because I was in a massive warehouse, and the time it takes to walk all the way to the toilet and back within that time, because we had targets to hit, and if you leave your station for too long, it will show that you're not hitting your targets, and then your gate gets locked. Then to reopen your gate, you have to talk to a manager, and then the manager will be like, "Well, why was your gate locked?" And then it will show that you weren't around, and then it just makes you. So that's why people don't go to the toilet, basically. So I personally never peed in a bottle, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Amazon workers have. So that's essentially what this is talking about. Obviously, they had different messages for Jeff Bezos. There was a protest I saw that they were putting tiny bottles of pee all around the Met, which was a bit insane. um, but I think it's warranted. I think any protest and boycotting of the Met Gala is really warranted. Now, something I did find interesting, following up from this, is the fact that Anna Wintour, the lovely out of touch Anna Wintour, was genuinely shocked that there was Met Gala backlash after the Jeff Bezos takeover. And that just shows you how out of touch a lot of these people are. You're supposed to be, well, not anymore, but like the head of the most important magazine in fashion, and you don't even know what the general temperature is politically, what people are talking about politically, what people think politically. I found that really insane. I also found it quite funny that Anna Wintour, the rumor is that she reportedly threw a crisis meeting to figure out how they were going to dealing with the backlash from the Jeff Bezos takeover. I thought that was really funny. And in general, we have very much been seeing fashion court the Bezos family. Of course, we saw the Bezos wedding on Vogue. The Bezos wedding on Vogue started to trigger people saying that Jeff has bought Vogue. That is not true. That's a rumor. There's no confirmation. There's no transaction that's been reported that he actually bought Vogue. But I'm not saying it's not in the works. It's definitely going to be in the works. And Jeff Bezos already owns the Washington Post. So he owns media. It's quite clear that Lauren Sanchez is trying to force her way into fashion. I don't think she's ever going to be respected in fashion, ever. So I think she should just stop trying. But she's trying hard. She's a bit of a try hard when it comes to fashion. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's the reason why Jeff ends up buying Vogue anytime soon. I'm talking about the downfall of just what the Washington Post and anything related to the Bezos family. There's a big story today that has been really controversial via the Washington Post, and it's titled, How Do Stars Pee at the Met Gala? An Investigation. Now, of all things I expect from the Washington Post, I expect hard-nosed, serious journalism. This is insane. Trying to investigate how people pee because they wear extravagant dresses is just not the kind of thing that I would expect from the Washington Post. But it doesn't surprise me, considering that when trashy Jeff Bezos is involved, I'm not surprised that this is what they have resorted to. So I think this is quite embarrassing. So I think overall, I'm saying all of this to say, overall, this Met Gala has been a bit of a circus. It has been all over the place. And it seems a lot more political than any of the past Met Galas I've ever seen. And more people than ever are talking about politics than I've ever seen before. Which is a good thing, because, I mean, you look at what's going on in the world, like unprovoked wars, all sorts of things are happening that I won't get into, that I'm sure all of you are privy to. So yeah, it's all been a mess, to be honest. Like, when I think about this Met Gala, it's all a bit of a mess. It's quite telling that Daphne Guinness hasn't been to the Met Gala in many years. Yeah, it's also become just a bit of a, I don't even know what the right word to use, but it's just too much of a spectacle where it's no longer about clothing. People don't really talk about the clothing anymore, and fashion has become so much more mainstream over the years, right? So I wanted to say circus, but I already said that. But fashion has become so much more mainstream over the years that there are a lot more people involved in fashion that don't really know anything about fashion. So a lot of Met Gala reviews now just become, that's not good, that's not giving, that look is not giving, not talking about the theme, not talking about the clothing, not talking about the designers that made the clothing, not giving any interesting insight on the clothes. It's all about, can I shit on XYZ celebrity the first and get my views? That's essentially what the Met Gala has turned to. So yeah, Met Gala has been quite a bit of a mess. So I thought it only fitting for the first look for me to review to that should be the Lauren Sanchez look, right? Wait, let me just see if I can move my my screen a bit. One sec. Just want to move it to the other side. There we go. So Lauren Sanchez is wearing custom Schiaparelli designed by, of course, Daniel Roseberry, styled by Law Roach. Now, obviously, you guys have, I was one of the first people to talk about this on the internet in terms of what the reference is, but essentially, this dress is supposed to reference the portrait of Madame X. So, for people that don't know, this is also part of the collection that the Met actually has. And considering that the theme was fashion is art, I expected a lot of people to just reference sculpture, past artwork that is in the Met, that is owned by the Met. Also, the exhibit really touches on this idea of the body as a work of art and clothing as, and its relationship with the body as an artistic medium. So I expected a lot of bodycon dresses as well for that same reason. So this was to be expected, that someone would reference a painting that is literally owned by the Met. So the portrait of Madame X is a very controversial painting. And the story essentially is, it was painted by John Singer Sargent in 1884. And the reason why it's so controversial is because the original painting, the model in question, the person who the portrait is about, Virginie Gautreau, her strap was slightly off her shoulder. And that was considered, we need to think the 1800s when the sexism was through the roof. Not like sexism still isn't through the roof, but I can only imagine how it was in the 1800s. The expectations of women, how women's bodies were policed, how the way women dressed at the time was policed. It was really controversial, and it was seen as very bad taste to have one strap off shoulder. And her husband was actually so angry about it, he told John Singer Sargent to essentially remove the painting, and Sargent essentially ended up repainting it with the strap normal for the final version, which is the version that the Met has. Let me see if I can actually find a picture of the original painting. One second. Let's see. Did I have a picture of the original? Yeah, this is what like the original looked like. So the strap was slightly off shoulder. Now, why this is interesting, at least to me, yeah, he had to leave Paris and made a new career in London. Yeah. It like basically destroyed her. Obviously, I can talk about it, but we're just talking about it slightly to reference it back to Lauren Bezos's look. But yeah, it literally destroyed her life. And she was someone that was a really famous socialite. She was seen as very beautiful in society. And then it just turned into a conversation about how grotesque the painting was. And it just messed up how she was perceived in society at the time. So that's why it's very controversial. Now, going back to Lauren Sanchez, I'm thinking, what kind of statement is she trying to make? What's her point here? What exactly is she trying to tell us? Is she trying to make a reference to the fact that, she's drawing a parallel between a socialite whose image has caused a scandal, and she, of course, I don't even know what to call her at this point, but let's call her a socialite. Her image also causes scandal. She's very controversial. I just think it's really funny. I really think it's really funny. I think whatever conversation she was trying to have, I don't think it hit. I'm also really curious to know whose idea was it to have her wear this. Was it Laura Roach? Was it Daniel Roseberry? Was it her? Or was it a mixture of all of them? I'm very curious to know whose idea exactly it was to do all of these. I think it'll be interesting to get that information in the future. The second look I want to talk about, because this is a look that everyone is talking about as well, is Bhavitha Mandava, who of course was wearing a full silk look by Chanel, which is mirroring the look that she wore when she was scouted as a model a couple years ago. She was studying at NYU, and she was scouted in a New York subway. Now, of course, we've seen this look so many times. In the first Chanel Metier show that Matthieu did at Chanel, we saw her wearing this same look, a recreation of the look, and then they've recreated it again for the Met Gala. And obviously, this was very controversial because a lot of people were speaking about the fact that she is Indian. India is somewhere that is known for craft, and the craft of India could be said that it's an art form in and of itself. So people wanted to see her in really expertly crafted garments. Chanel has the Metier. That's what people were looking forward to. But instead, they got a recreation of a look that we've already seen on her before, just in a different fabric. Now, of course, there is a big craft to making these garments in silk. First of all, I must say that. Secondly, we don't know if that's what she wanted. You need to think that this look holds huge significance in her life, and it's essentially the reason why she is where she is in life right now. It's also important to note that, maybe there's a marketing push behind it, because Bhavitha is and a Chanel ambassador currently. So I can imagine that Chanel is just using this as a marketing tool to sell those pieces. It becomes the Bevita look, where you buy the Bevita jeans and the Bevita top. I don't know if that's the marketing push that they're going for. If that's the case, that's very interesting that they decided it to go that way. But I did see people arguing for both sides. Like I said, some people think that they kind of did her a disservice because of the craftsmanship that is in India and conversations that could have been had around that, to be honest. Okay, someone in the chat saying, as an Indian, it was so disappointing to see. I expected much more, especially as she is a muse of Matthieu. Yeah, we don't really know what the intention was because they haven't really come out. Definitely a marketing tool as so much people got to talking about it. Exactly. And a lot of these fashion brands, they believe that, any press is good press. I don't think these brands actually believe in bad press or actually think that bad press is a real thing, to be honest. So, no surprises there. No surprises there. I would hardly doubt it at all. Overly meta, though. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. But yeah, either way, like I said, a lot of people are just expecting something a bit more conceptual. Even though Matthieu Blasi, and this is a point I've made online previously, Matthieu is famous for his optical illusion garments anyway. Like when you think of what he was doing at Bottega Veneta, a lot of times, because Bottega Veneta is very famous for their leather craftsmanship, he would have collections where he would have something that looks like a cotton vest, but actually it's made out of leather or jeans. This is a good example. Bottega Fall Winter 2022, where a lot of the denim pieces were actually leather, a lot of these cotton vests were actually leather. So he's known to do that anyway. So it is very, on brand for him to do that also. So I think it's a very Matthieu thing to do. So yeah, that's the whole conversation about Bavida. Next, we have, of course, Emma Chamberlain. Emma Chamberlain was a look that I saw most people liked it, to be honest. Most people had positive things to say about her look. This is a custom Mugler look, obviously by Miguel Castro Freitas, and it is hand painted by an artist, which took 40 hours of work. And it actually, the crazier thing, it took 4 days to dry, which is insane. So the whole point is for her to essentially look like a painting. Um, I actually read somewhere that there was a slight reference to Van Gogh's Garden at Isles for the 1888 painting, which it's a bit of a stretch. And it's not like it doesn't completely look anywhere remotely similar. Yes, the colors maybe, but I wouldn't say that, the painting looks remotely similar to the dress. But I do like the idea that they're going for, kind of Emma Chamberlain looking like some sort of a painting. But essentially, this is the painting that supposedly she is referencing. Luke says the dress is horrible. Looked like an arts and crafts project. 40 hours in a grand scheme of custom high fashion is literally nothing. Yeah, in terms of custom high fashion, but I think just one person painting is a bit crazy, to be honest. It is a bit insane. Um, so yeah, Emma Chamberlain, she was wearing that. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people said that they really enjoyed her look. What do you guys think in the chat? Did you guys like Emma Chamberlain's look? Did you not? What did you think about it? I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was quite good. I thought it was also a good way to open the Met Gala because Emma Chamberlain was one of the hosts, so she arrived on the red carpet, well, in this case, the white and green carpet, quite early compared to everyone else. I think this was a good dress for the theme. Open the schools. That's funny. Yeah, I understand that some people are going to force the art reference because of the theme and it makes people seem, slightly more intelligent. Like they're making a lot more of an intelligent reference than they are in actual fact. Okay, Foxy says, I like the look. I liked it, to be honest. Sometimes the banal works the best. Lots of people tend to overthink it. That is also true. Definitely, there are lots of people that overthink it. She understood the assignment, it appears. It's almost good, like, does not quite hit the potential it has, to be honest. Interesting. Okay. So it seems like most of you liked it. That's interesting. Next, obviously, a massive conversation starter was Heidi Klum's look. Heidi Klum was always coming in these crazy ass looks. But anyway, this is a custom look by Mike Marino, who's a well-known makeup and prosthetic artist. Bad Bunny, who I'll talk about later. Mike Marino also worked on Bad Bunny's look. And essentially, she has this look made out of different layers of foam and latex to make her look like somewhat of a walking sculpture, like a walking, moving statue. And essentially, it's referencing two really famous sculptures that are quite well respected and highly regarded for their depictions of people in a veil. So the first one is Raphael Monti's Veiled Vestal Virgin, as you guys can see here. So cool reference. I actually do like, because I think, so this is one thing I always think about the Met Gala. The Met Gala most times is about art. So the Met Gala can actually be grotesque. You can have a look at the Met Gala that is grotesque. It looks kind of scary. It looks a bit weird. I think the Met Gala is the platform to do those kind of things because of the nature of the fact that the Met Gala has themes on all those kind of things. If you just want to see pretty dresses all day, I think that you need to watch the Oscars or something like that that's more classic and everyone's going to wear a nice gown. But I think the Met Gala isn't necessarily just for that. I think also in the Met Gala there's leeway to be a bit more artistic with your depictions, right? So I didn't mind it at all. I honestly didn't mind it at all. But yeah, the other sculpture by Giuseppe Sammartino is called The Veiled Christ, which of course is another depiction of a person in a veil, but done in a very, very good way. So yeah, what did you guys think about Heidi Klum's look? I'm really curious. Let me read the chat. Let me see what you guys are saying. He says, at this point, just call it a Halloween party, because all I'm seeing every year are costumes. It's not like we got designers having the techniques to do the wet drapery look a few years ago. I mean, the whole wet look design idea is something that I think many brands at this point have beaten into the ground. It is quite, yeah, a lot of people have beaten it into the ground at this point. Luke says, beautiful sculpture. The sculpture is true art. What, not Heidi Klum? Come on, guys, give Heidi Klum some credit. Heidi looked like a really impressive horror movie villain. It was super striking, but it was more costume. But, so my thing is, with people saying this is costume, is there anything wrong with people wearing things that are costumey to a Met Gala when the theme is literally fashion is art? I think that theme is asking for costume, to be honest. If the theme was, you know, Alexander McQueen and people are coming in costumes, it would be a bit odd. Or John Galliano. Actually, no, John Galliano would make sense to be in costume, but Alexander McQueen, it would be a bit odd, wouldn't it? So I think it just depends on the theme. The theme is literally about art. So I don't know what else you expect. Like, what else are we to expect when that's the theme? So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Next we have Rihanna. Of course, we've already seen this look. Guys that follow this channel, you're familiar with this look already. This is a look by Glenn Martens, Maison Margiela from the Fall 25 Couture collection. Yeah, there's not really much to say. Obviously, the construction is insane. The fact that, there's over 115,000 hand sewn crystal beads in different tones, like gold and silver tones. The craftsmanship is there, definitely. The fact that the original look was referencing Flemish paintings that Glenn Martins was looking at and inspired by, that makes sense. It fits into the theme. So there's a through line there. But I think because we've seen this look so soon, it doesn't, I don't know, it's not that, like, it's not record breaking. It's not super interesting. Like, we literally just saw this look. And then, of course, you had ASAP Rocky, who was seen in pictures with Rihanna wearing Chanel. The name/dress code of the exhibit was at total odds with the actual context of the exhibit, which was all about the body. They did an exhibit called The Body Transformed years ago. Maybe that's why. Yeah, of course. That is true. Because Luke, they tried to spin it and say that, well, because the exhibit is about the dressed body as a form of art. I think they said that because they tried to tie in the exhibit with the Met Gala theme. That's what they tried to do, but yeah, I think they were even confused. I think they just want the John Galliano Met Gala theme, and because they haven't gotten it yet, they're just throwing everything into the wind and seeing what sticks. To be honest, I think that's what they're doing. Um, yeah, someone I actually really want to talk about next is Sarah Paulson. Oh, with an A. Is Sarah Paulson, because a lot of people are talking about Sarah Paulson, of course, because of her critique of the 1%, I guess, which I found a bit strange. I don't know. Guys, tell me how you feel about this, right? I've always found it interesting when someone is actively partaking in something that they're critiquing something that they're actively partaking in. So this is a critique I've had for Demna, for example, right? Demna tries or likes to critique things that he benefits from actively. So Demna will critique the fashion industry and how it operates through his collections, or he'll have collections where he makes a commentary on society and celebrity culture, but then he does a collection at Hollywood that he financially benefits from. So do you guys think that someone can actively benefit from something and at the same time critique it, and that critique is genuine, if that makes sense? Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm just curious. But anyway, this look is from Fecal Matter, their Fall Winter 26 collection. It was that collection that was really viral, the 1% collection, that whole collection where they were critiquing the 1% and just making commentaries about how rich people have pillaged the earth, essentially. Let me see if I can get a video of that, just so you guys can see what I'm talking about, and then we can speak more about fecal matter and all that sort of stuff. Okay, yes, I found it. 1 second. Yeah, so it's this collection. Let me just fast forward to the action. Yeah, so it's this collection. So this collection, most of you would have seen it. Just make myself smaller. Most of you would have seen it, like even the gloves, the white gloves with the red hand, which signifies that rich people have blood on their hands and all those kind of things. It was just all about that. So that Sarah Paulson's look is essentially from this collection that you guys are seeing on the screen. But yeah, I don't know, because it's just, you're attending a gala where tickets are super expensive, sponsored by one of the wealthiest men in the world, in Jeff Bezos, who has a net worth that is higher than $250 billion, wearing a Boucheron diamond choker and a couture gown, and you yourself, you're worth an estimated $12 million. So it's very difficult to critique wealth considering all of that context. So to me, it fell on deaf ears, to me. But I don't know what you guys think about it. I'm curious. Let me see what you guys are saying. Critique from where you are and hopefully you inspire people. She can critique it all she wants, but that ain't a good way to do it. But that's like me critiquing capitalism while having a job. I have to have a job, but can still see it for what it is. I guess the only difference is, so if we're talking about the Demna thing, Demna specifically critiques very specific things about fashion that he's the reason why it's that way. So Demna is a big reason why fashion right now is a lot more memey. So he critiques the meminess of fashion, but at the same time, and then in interviews he'll say, I don't do gimmicks and nothing I do is gimmicky. But then he's a reason why so many designers have seen what he's done and think that they can just do gimmicks and that's okay as a designer or that's sufficient. He's one of the big reasons why that's the case. So I think he's the wrong messenger for that message. So I think it just depends. Definitely strange, but I think it can be genuine. It just really depends on a person critiquing. For example, you can be wealthy and do positive things for the community. Okay, I don't really know much about what Sarah Paulson has done. For people that are fans of Sarah Paulson, can you tell me what exactly she's done for the wider community or what she has done for people? What initiatives does she run? What charity does she run? What charity has she donated to? What causes has she supported or fought for? I just want to know. I'm curious if anyone in the chat is very aware. Someone said every way is a good way to critique because there's no proper way. No, I don't think every critique is valid because I think you have to consider who is critiquing. You know what they're doing. Like I think more people can have a more authentic critique based on their situation. I'm just confused about the collection. Like, who is it for then? Like, have you seen the brand's prices? Arguably, this collection's performance arts itself, so it's on theme. Yeah, the collection is for rich people that think they aren't part of the problem. Because a lot of rich people always think, well, there's someone richer than me, so I'm not the problem. So if they're worth 100 million, they'll think, well, I'm not a billionaire, so I'm not the problem. A billionaire will be like, I'm not Elon Musk, so I'm not the problem. I feel like that's how they think. I think it's hard to judge if someone is genuine if you don't know them or at least see them frequently, and when you see them, they align with a specific thing. That's a good point, to be honest. The only way to eat the rich is to be where the rich is. Interesting. You need a job to survive. She's just an entertainment event for the wealthy. Good point. Because she didn't have to go. Very good point. But there's a difference between someone who has an established platform attempting to critique something that is a prominent topic for the public versus a regular person doing it. Yep, valid. All valid points. All valid points. League says nobody working in fashion design is critiquing anything. It's all just pretentious twaddle feigning as interrogation. Fair enough. I'm liking the difference in opinion from the chat. Seems like people on different ends of the spectrum. Also being worth 12 million in those circles is basically being on food stamps. That's funny. Silent protest needs to consider its audience. We're here for the fashion and nothing else. Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, that was the big conversation around Sarah Paulson's look. I think that was what made it interesting. That's what had people talking about her look. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that look. The next look that I thought was really fascinating, and I have a lot to say about this actually, is Stevie Nicks. Because Stevie Nicks wore... Let me just move my screen to the other side. Give me 1 second. 1 sec. Make myself bigger as well. Okay, perfect. So, Stevie Nicks is wearing Zara by John Galliano, which is insane. I never thought I'd literally be saying that. But essentially, this is the first look at John Galliano's Zara we have seen publicly. So this is very, very interesting. Extremely interesting, actually. This is very John Galliano. It's also very Stevie Nicks. It's very like Dior in a way, because Dior likes to have loads of volume and corsetry and the crinoline and the layers and the fabrics. This look is very Dior. It's also very Stevie Nicks. And I just thought it was really random because it's like, what relation does this have to Zara's customer base or Zara's audience? And what does this say about Zara's strategy as a whole moving forward? Do they want John Galliano to be sort of a, red carpet designer for Zara now? Do they want John Galliano to design more red carpet looks? What exactly is the wider strategy concerning this look? I'm really confused when it comes to this look, to be honest. So very strange, very, very strange. But I do think there's an important conversation there because I talk about this all the time and the fact that fast fashion now is changing and slowly going into that mid-tier market because the fast fashion brands realize we cannot compete on price with Temu and Shein, so we need to start changing our branding and repositioning ourselves higher up the totem pole in terms of market segments in fashion. So that's why H&M has been doing a lot more collaborations. They've been working with a lot more designers. They've been throwing massive runway shows in London. You have Zara, who have been working with really massive designers and really current designers that their names are popping right now. You have the likes of Willy Chavarria. You have the likes of John Galliano, of course, who has a longer term partnership. In the past, we've seen Stefano Pilati have a collection with Zara. We've seen Samuel Ross, formerly of A Cold War, have a collection with Zara. So this is all their bid to be seen as more luxury than the typical fast fashion that we associate Zara with, right? So I'm quite curious to see what exactly this red carpet strategy is about and if they have a bigger plan for the red carpet. And I think it was very telling that Marta Ortega was literally on the red carpet. I think that says a lot about Zara and their plans to move into a more luxurious space. Because think about it. This Stevie Nicks look was showcased side by side with couture garments that cost millions. Side by side with all these massive luxury brands like Chanel, like Schiaparelli. So there's definitely a strategy to it. There must be. And for people that don't know, Marta Ortega is literally the chairwoman of Inditex. And obviously Inditex owns Zara. So it was fascinating. And I think John Galliano designed her look as well. I think. I can't remember, but I think so. So yeah, Zara they were very busy. Very busy on the Met Gala night, for sure. It's like the Mad Hatter exhibiting Westwood Anglomanias. Gone with the wind. That's funny. Also, Zara collabs allergic to colors. It seems so. They tend to be very black, white, grey, navy. It's very fascinating. A top hat with a single feather and a second empire dress in cheap fabric. Unforgivable. Luke, this is your goat. John Galliano is your goat. Also, and it's crazy because you have to think, right, with this look, it was John Galliano who designed the clothes and Stephen Jones who made the hat. These are two heavyweights of the fashion industry when we're talking about some of the most highly revered designers of the past 50 years, and they're both working on a Zara project. It's dystopian. The end times are near. We are close to the end times. I still don't get what positioning Zara wants to achieve because they look all over the place. Yeah, 100%. 100%. The Zara and also the Gap Studio look very interesting. Yeah, Gap is another brand that is using this red carpet strategy to try and recontextualize what it represents. Zac Posen has kind of been building out a lot of that. So yeah, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. But yeah, that there was a. I remember quite a while ago. It was months ago when I reacted to an article in BOF where he essentially had an interview talking about all his plans for Gap Studio, and a big part of it was the red carpet side of it. So that's definitely a big focus. Zara is the brand that catered to the bump away from fast fashion before the trend, in my opinion. I'm excited. Yeah, I mean that is true. Zara was always seen as the brand that was it's fast fashion, but it was seen as higher level than all the other fast fashion brands. It was also seen as more fashion forward than a lot of the other fast fashion brands. But Zara is has always been like a copycat brand. Anytime something is trending, you expect it to be in Zara a few weeks later. The Dries Van Noten sneakers were trending. All of a sudden, you have the Zara version of the Dries Van Noten sneakers and they're doing campaigns. You also have the likes of, like when I remember when Kanye West, for example, was his brand Yeezy was huge with those tonal colors. Zara were duping everything he was making, and that stuff was selling out. They duped the Yeezy boot. So Zara has always been a brand that they look at what is happening in high fashion, and they essentially just give you cheaper alternatives. That has always been their strategy. Wasn't COS in the same tier? Was that just my personal bias? No, I wouldn't put COS in the same tier as Zara. I think Zara has always been seen as a slightly higher tier than COS, if I'm being honest. I don't think they're seen on the same level. I don't think so. That Yeezy era has continued to persist. Yeah, 100%. Honestly, when whatever Galliano will do gets released, I'll have to do social media to dodge all the don't walk run to Zara videos. That's funny. That's hilarious. But yeah, I just thought that was very fascinating. This whole Zara conversation, this fast fashion on the red carpet. What does that mean for, red carpet looks moving forward? Just, fascinating conversation. And talking about Zara, another person who was wearing Zara on the night was Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, like I said, very similar to Heidi Klum. Bad Bunny's look and prosthetics, because he's essentially supposed to depict an aging man, and that was the whole point of it. It was done by Mike Marino, and it's essentially this idea of the aging man as a work of art, which a lot of people found interesting. I think the prosthetics are cool. I think there's a bigger conversation to have around Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny has been in under fire, I guess, or there's been a lot of controversy for Bad Bunny working with fast fashion brands. The big conversation, right, was the Super Bowl performance he did, where he was wearing custom Zara for his Super Bowl thing. So I wonder what is Bad Bunny's deal with Zara? Is he like the face of Zara or something? He seems to wear a lot of Zara custom looks. So yeah, the prosthetics to me were the more interesting part, and just the aging man as art. I thought that was really interesting. The look, less interesting. And the craziest thing I saw online was they were saying that, he's referencing Charles James's famous bustle dress from 1947. And I'm just like, that is a stretch if I've ever seen one. Like, he's wearing damn near a tuxedo with a pussy bow. That's it. Like, I don't know how you can say just because Charles James's dress has a bow. Like, let me show you guys the dress now. All of a sudden, now he's referencing a Charles James dress. I think some people, and I remember learning about this when I studied fashion journalism at university, a lot of people in fashion, they do things that aren't very well considered, and then they try to add the consideration after the fact. Like, I'm not going to just be like, just because it has a pussy bow doesn't mean you can start saying it's inspired by a Charles James dress and like, oh, it's so similar just because there's a bow. If that's the case, that means it's also inspired by every Dior dress ever. It's inspired by every dress in the Rococo era. Like, let's be let's not be silly here. Beautiful gowns to the reach, yeah. Zara is a Spanish company. No, I think it's him trying to relate maybe to his core fan base. I feel like a lot of his fan base shops there, so he is maybe supporting them. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's one angle to look at it from. But I do just think it's interesting considering everything I've said about Zara's overall strategy concerning trying to be seen as a more premium brand. So I do think it benefits Zara to have someone like Bad Bunny who's so well loved and is so famous and is so in touch with the younger generation to be seen as, the a muse for the brand. It's kind of giving it a cool edge that maybe it wouldn't have if Bad Bunny's face wasn't attached to the brand. So yeah, 1 second. Let me just whip up the next look I actually wanted to speak about. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. So this is very interesting, this look. And this is definitely one of the better menswear looks that I saw across the whole Met Gala. Um, this is Karan Johar. And essentially, there was a contingent of people in the 2026 Met Gala that were essentially showcasing Indian craft through their look. So you had people like Karan Johar, Isha Ambani, Ananya Burla. They were essentially collectively making a statement about Indian artisanal heritage. Where most of the guests were essentially wearing European brands, borrowing jewelry from these high European houses like Cartier or Bulgari. You had a lot of Indian attendees to the 2026 Met Gala who essentially were wearing more privately owned heirlooms in terms of garments and wearing jewelry designed by Indian brands. So that was very fascinating to me. And I think that all of them in this boat that wanted to showcase Indian craft, they all looked flawless. They all looked amazing, actually. So I was a big fan of this look. Thought it was absolutely amazing. I like the cape, the dramatic cape. So yeah, really, 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 really nice elements to this look, and I like that there's a focus on craft. And I guess this is more what people were expecting. Going back to the Bavida conversation, I think this is more what people were expecting when it came to Bavida in terms of what Chanel was going to dress her in. As you can see, they're saying that it took 5,600 hours to create, which is insane. Like the levels of craftsmanship is out of this world, completely out of this world, to be very honest with you. And you've got more images on Instagram, which are really cool. Let's go on his Instagram page, see if we can get different looks. So yeah, I even like the highlighting of Indian brands like Manish Malhotra. This is really cool because, like I said, there were quite a few people on the red carpet that were showcasing Indian brands and Indian designers and Indian craftsmanship. So great, 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 great. I love the Indian soft power push. Yeah, one of the only good men's looks. Agreed. 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 There were so many so many bad menswear looks. And sometimes I wonder why do a lot of the men show up? Why do they even bother? Why I just don't understand. Why turn up to the Met Gala and just wear a plain black tuxedo? What is the point? You might as well just stay at home. Why leave your house? I've never understood it. I never will. At least be fun once in your life. Just try it for a change. It's really strange. Really, really strange. Because they're ambassadors and they don't choose. I mean, so think about it this way, right? I'll tell you some information I know just behind the scenes. This is why I think that This is why a lot of conglomerates are struggling financially because I personally think they don't know what they're doing, right? So there are fashion brands that I've worked with in the past that have disclosed to me how much they've paid certain celebrities to wear their garments. So I know they've paid certain celebrities, I'm talking about men, six figures and in some rare cases, seven figures to wear a custom tuxedo by the brand to like the Oscars or something like that, right? Now, I just think about it logically. That makes no sense. Because these brands are not known for making tuxedos. If it's Tom Ford, it makes sense. But these are brands that are not known for tuxedos. They're not even lesser known for menswear. So outside of people just, knowing that, okay, this person wore X brand, no one cares. It's not really going to generate any income for them, really, because you can't buy you can't actually like if you like the tuxedo you can't buy it because they don't really sell it, it's custom. I just don't understand the logic of it. It's so illogical, it's insane. So going back to what you said, Luke, yes, they're ambassadors, but I just think the whole system of it is quite stupid. I think the whole model is dumb. That's why these brands throw money into the bin and they start struggling financially and they're confused like, oh, we need to change our strategy. We don't know. We don't know. We're trying to, get money from here and there. I just think some of the things they allocate money to are terrible. It just reminds me of, I'm not sure how many of you have seen the Victoria Beckham documentary on Netflix, where essentially she was spending so much money on really mundane things like flying plants in for shows, and it took a businessman to take over the business and tell her that spending money that way was absolutely diabolical. And he started changing all those systems. And now Victoria Beckham's brand has finally started to be profitable after over a decade of spending money stupidly. So a lot of brands do spend money in a way that just doesn't make sense. And I guess they'll just never really learn, to be honest. Um, but yeah, talking about menswear, let's talk about some other menswear looks. Another look that a lot of people are talking about was Skepta's look. Skepta's look essentially was inspired by his own personal tattoos. So it's this idea of body art as a concept being turned into a garment. Now, actually, and I like it. It's Thom Browne, by the way, for people that don't know. It's a custom Thom Browne look. It's this sort of wool jumpsuit, tailored jumpsuit, and all his tattoos are hand stitched in embroidery, which is kind of crazy. I read that there are 500,000 stitches, and there's about 4,500 meters of black thread. Now, my issue with this look, though, is the execution. Great idea, not great execution. The idea of having his tattoos and this tattoo art idea is great. I like the idea, but I just don't like how it's executed. I think the end result doesn't do the idea justice, to be honest. He's inspired by himself, so matter. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about my point previously. A lot of brands still more or less behave like it's 1998. Yeah, a lot of fashion brands are really backwards. I remember that so many luxury brands before COVID, they used to do this thing where they would be like, we don't have websites. Websites are not luxury, blah, blah, blah. And then COVID happened. And then all of them were scrambling to make websites. And that was when Farfetch made a massive amount of money because Farfetch was the company that was making all the different websites for all these different fashion companies. And they were managing the back end of all these websites for all these fashion companies. Some of you might not know that, but that my friend used to work at Farfetch, so I know this. So yeah, so many fashion brands are just. I honestly think fashion is one of the slowest adopting industries in the world. It actually shocks me how much money these brands make, considering how much money they waste. I think they just make so much money in spite of how wasteful they are. It doesn't matter, but yeah, the way that a lot of fashion brands allocate funds, it doesn't make any sense. Scaffy went boy better know at the Met. Yeah, wouldn't have guessed Thom Browne. Yeah, because once again, it's the way it's executed. It's just the way it's executed. All we need was a Lord forgive me if I bust my nine reference to complete this look. Also, why was there no com? Exactly, because com is one of the epitomes of art meets fashion, right? So yeah, that's a good point. Ray probably said hell no. Imagine, she probably would, to be honest. Understood says, you keep saying the way it's executed, clearly meaning it's just fucking ugly. You said it, not me. Yeah, it doesn't look good, basically. That's what I mean by the execution is not great. Because I like the idea in theory. It just, even though there's insane and sensational craftsmanship attached to the look, right? The outcome looks like black scribbles on white fabric. Um, so yeah, I can imagine a world in which if it was executed differently, this look actually would have looked really, really good. But the problem is it just wasn't executed well. So there's nothing we can do about that. Mr. Diplomat. No, no, no. No Com, no Yoji, only one Jean Paul Gaultier look, and it was shit. No McQueen, what a mess. Yeah, no Victor. Victor and Rolf too would be a good example of where fashion meets art. You got these are good suggestions, guys. These are really good. These are good suggestions. Understood says it looks a bit like Boy London. That's funny. Talking about some of the many other menswear looks that I just was dumbfounded by. Damson Idris wearing Prada was an absolute shit show to me. It was an absolute. I just don't know. The story about the jewelry was very interesting though, because the brand it's called DIDRIS, and it's essentially his own jewelry line, and it's named after his mother, who I believe her name is Philippa Idris. So it's kind of a mix on Idris and Damson and like mixing it together. It's called Didris. And essentially his mum actually used to collect and sell jewelry when he was younger. And she had to give up her, her dream of being sort of like a jewelry designer and trader to take care of the kids. So he kind of wanted to make a jewelry brand inspired by his mum and kind of allow her to relive her dream that she gave up to take care of him. That is amazing. That is so wholesome. I love that story. But the clothing, where does the clothing fit in all of this though? Where does the clothing fit? Where does the clothing fit in this? I'm curious, guys. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? But the story with his mum, beautiful. But the clothing, just the leather jacket. There were people online saying that he looks like he's going to a nightclub. There's just nothing remotely interesting about this look at all. Quite literally nothing about it. Unless I'm missing something. People in the chat, let me know if I'm missing something. Let me know what I'm missing. Let me know what I'm missing. The Prada look is less art meets fashion and more art meets minimum effort. And that's why I have been talking about this for a while now. I've been critiquing Prada a lot, as you guys know that follow the live streams. I've been saying that they over contextualize and over analyze their clothing and try to make their clothing more intellectual than it actually is, when a lot of Prada is just really plain stuff and they try to add narrative after the fact. And this is just another good example. I genuinely think that Prada does the bare minimum a lot of times. And they charge outrageous prices as well. That's a whole with terrible quality. That's a whole different conversation. But all of that, that's why I think we need to stop giving Prada too much leeway. Because people, they love Miuccia Prada and they think Miuccia Prada is this absolute genius. And so because Prada has that branding, Prada can just put a t-shirt on a red carpet where the theme for the Met Gala is, fashion meets art, and everyone is going to intellectualize it and be like, yeah, what Miuccia Prada actually meant and desired by this is talking about how this is a commentary on the mundane and how the mundane t-shirt has become a symbol for our everyday lives and for the contemporary everyday person. Like, just relax. Relax. Sometimes a t-shirt is just a t-shirt. Relax. So that is something that really annoys me about the way that people talk about Prada. I do think people over intellectualize it. Obviously, part of it is how Prada markets themselves, because something I find funny, and I always point this out, right? But when you go on Prada's Instagram page, it says thinking fashion since 1913. They want you to know that at Prada we think. At Prada, it's about intellectualism. At Prada, we are smart. We're smarter than the other brands. We don't just make clothes. We think fashion. We don't just design. We think it. That I do find that really funny that that's in their Instagram bio, because that's a very direct way of them telling you that we are so intellectual. So yeah, all of that to say, there's absolutely nothing remotely interesting about his look. And it's just a symbol of what is annoying me about Prada, especially in recent times. It's really, really annoying. Thinking fashion, they were a luggage company, and that's it. I know, right? They're like thinking fashion since 1913. They made leather goods. That's what they did in 1913. Oh my god, that's funny. That's hilarious. Um, the next look I want to talk about is Colman Domingo. So Colman Domingo, interesting-ish. Um, Colman Domingo obviously loves an Alessandro Michele moment. This was custom Valentino by Alessandro Michele. This look took 400 hours to craft. It's kind of this multicolored patchwork jacket with red beaded sequin trousers. Um, it's interesting. I've seen better looks from Colman, to be honest. Colman has a certain bag. He likes tailoring and tailoring in different colors. So that's a whole nother thing. They try to claim that, it's inspired by Jean-Michel Basquiat's really famous painting. Do I see the similarities? Maybe in terms of colorway, maybe. Maybe the beading at the side of the trousers and the red there with mixed with the black. Maybe. But I think once again, a lot of the references that they were claiming, I think a lot of them were stretches, to be honest. But yeah, I've seen Colman Domingo wear much better looks at the Met Gala than this in the past. Like I've seen him wear way, way, way better looks than this in the past. So yeah, I still think he looks good. I still think he looks good, but I just think that I've seen I've seen better looks from him on the red carpet, to be honest. Basquiat, no, just no. On a different celebrity, maybe yes. On Coleman, it's a huge mess. That's interesting. So he's a victim of his own standards. Fascinating. Fascinating. We should start. Wait, this is an interesting comment. We should start frowning upon the exhibitionist way brands tell the team was so time heavy. Ah, I'll accept he's done better looks. I do like it though. Yeah, Harlequin Nutcracker. Oh my gosh. Italian Harlequin is insane. That's insane. Not you saying the reference is a Rubik's Cube. Oh my god, that's funny. Oh gosh. But yeah, I don't know. like the Basquiat reference, I think was a bit of a drag. Because when I think of Coleman Domingo, I think of someone that keeps red carpet fashion fun. Obviously, he likes colors. He's very dapper. This doesn't give off dapper. The way that the patchwork is done, it's not clean in the way that Coleman's looks normally look. Luke says a lot of primary colors. It's making me nauseous. Damn. Damn. This is true. The fit up top is very military. Even the trousers. Like military trousers have those stripes down the side, no? Let me see. Military trousers. They normally have like the ceremonial ones. They normally have that stripe down the side, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like these are how military trousers look. They normally have that stripe down the side. So I think the top and bottom give off a military aesthetic. Yeah, those are literally navy pants, exactly. Yeah, military and tuxedo trousers have stripes. Yes, exactly, exactly, exactly. I think if it had a stronger shoulder, I'd go over. But then wouldn't that just make it more military looking? Are you saying that you want him to kind of lean into the military aesthetic or no? What's the deal with that? I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. Because I don't know, like, a stronger shoulder, epaulets, that's just going to make it look like an army uniform, no? It's going to make it look like he's a Harlequin soldier, as people are saying in the chat. Too many wrinkles and pulling. Yeah, I just couldn't put my finger on it, but it just look. There's something about the patchwork that doesn't look clean. It doesn't look just the way it's executed. It's not to the level that I associate the kind of thing that Coleman Domingo would wear normally. To be very honest with you. But yeah, those are my thoughts for now on the Met Gala. I will be doing some more parts moving forward. But thank you very much for tuning in to this short Met Gala review. I've kind of set the scene. So in the next streams, we will be looking at way more looks all in one stream. They'll be a lot longer. And I won't have to, I'll just get straight into the looks. I won't start explaining the context around the Met Gala and the controversy because I've done that in part one. So I don't feel the need to do that over and over and over again. So yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in once again. It's great to be back streaming. This is always fun, as always. And I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Thank you very much for tuning in.